Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Power of Speaking Up, the next in our talk show series where we talk to young adults in our community who are standing up for Israel, who are here, who are doing what they can in order to support Israel and to be there for us. If you saw last week posted on our website, you can find a link on our website as a video of an interview with Ronnie Novick and Elliot Dweck, two soldiers right now serving in the IDF who were both in Gaza defending us and were there after October 7th. That was amazing. It was revolutionary to see what they had to tell us, to hear the insider accounts, to hear what was really going on, to hear what our soldiers are really going through. That is all available up on our website now, on the SCA website. Now, today we have Joe J. Gindi. He is a graduate of Yeshiva Flatbush University High School. He went to Yeshivat Eretz Tzvi in Israel for a year, and now he's a student at Rutgers University in New Jersey. And he has been setting up on his campus. When he requests to join, we'll be able to add him right away. And we'll be able to hear from Joe J about his experience not only on Rutgers University, not only advocating on campus, but on his experience at Capitol Hill, testifying in front of members of Congress. That's House of Representatives, the real Congress. He was there with other student leaders, other Jewish students, speaking to them about what was going on his campus. So whenever Joe requests to join, maybe that's his request right there. Let's see, Joe. Let's try that one more time. There it is. How are you doing, Joe?
Hi, Alan. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for coming. Thanks for speaking to us, taking the time out of the day to speak to everybody and talk to us about your experiences. I introduced you. Anything you want to say about yourself? We want to jump right into it.
Sure, I'll just introduce myself briefly. Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Joe J. Gindi. I am a sophomore at Rutgers University, where I major in economics with a triple minor in Jewish studies, history, and Arabic. I am a proud graduate of the Yeshiva of Flatbush, and I studied for a year in Yeshivat Eretz Tzvi in Yerushalayim.
Okay, great, Joe. So we know Joe is a student at Rutgers University. He's not just a student, he's a campus activist. He's a Jewish student leader. He's there for his students. He's there for Israel. He's there for us. So let's start at the beginning. October 7th happened. It was Sukkot. You got back on campus. What was it like? What was the atmosphere like in the coming months? Just describe us that scene.
So immediately after October 7th, it became extremely clear that things at Rutgers were not going to be the same as before. Friends of mine, Palestinian friends of mine, Arab friends of mine became extremely distant. I lost many friends, especially those in some of the progressive circles. Things were tough. Things were very hard for the Jewish community. And the week since October 7th, it became clear that there were those on campus who wished to make us feel afraid and scared and not welcome. And it became obvious that there were individuals and members of the administration and faculty that were complicit in allowing this.
So the culture obviously was didn't seem too comfortable. Obviously, you were taken aback.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do about it in those coming months? You and the other student leaders, how'd you stand up? What was your initial activism? What did your side of the fight or your advocacy look like?
So in the beginning, it was, bringing the Jewish community together. October 7th was a trauma for everyone. I've never experienced, I never hope that anyone has to experience a trauma like that again. In the beginning, it was really uniting the Jewish community from left to right, from Chabad to Hillel. Every Jewish organization was united at Rutgers. And in the weeks since, it became a big game of playing defense. Oh, someone was spit at here. They took over a building there. And it was piecing together these puzzles and seeing why is this happening? Why is no one doing anything about it? That was the beginning, right after October 7th, and in the weeks following with SJP's numerous incidents.
And do you feel like your advocacy made a strong impact on campus? You feel like you were able to really get that message out there, defend the Jewish people, try to convince those, we say there's 10% who hate us, 80% in the middle who are unsure. I mean, I assume you did a great job at it, but tell us how you really tried to get those 80%, how you tried to defend the Jewish people from all these libelous attacks.
Right. So it depends in which context you're speaking. I have friends who are politically involved, and it's a different conversation with them than it would be with an administrator. I think my testimony had a major impact on the campus. There's still a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of things that we're doing behind the scenes, especially in the follow up to my testimony. It's an ongoing battle, and I feel that some progress has been made, but there's still a very long way to go.
Yeah, that's how it feels everywhere, I think. Progress, but a long
Yeah.
way to go. You mentioned a couple times there your testimony on Capitol Hill, with Congress in front of the representatives. So let's backtrack right to the beginning of that. How did you feel when you were invited to something like that? Tell us how that process went, how you got invited, what those feelings felt like to you, etc.
Right. So I was initially invited from members of the committee. Congresswoman Virginia Fox's team reached out to me. They connected with me, and from there, it was an ongoing conversation. What's happening at Rutgers? What's being done? And as we kept speaking, other things kept happening. Incidents happened from the time I was contacted until the testimony. It was a very ongoing process, and I had to change my speech as things developed, especially in the later weeks. And I was terrified. I think anyone who would have done something like that would be terrified to speak in front of so many cameras and so many members of Congress and such a large audience. I mean, but I was proud at the end. I felt that I was there. I did what I had to do, and this is going to get the ball rolling. And I'm happy. I'm happy I spoke on that day.
I think we're all happy you spoke that day. I think that whole Congress room, seeing that YouTube video and seeing the live stream of that of our Jewish students speaking out in front of Congress was really so powerful. Let's talk about the day itself, right? You got there. What was it like? Where'd you go? Like, walk us through step by step that day. How did it happen? You got there in the morning, went to the Capitol building, etc. How'd it work?
Basically, yeah. It was an early day. I was in and out by train. I got up probably around 6, got to the train station in New Brunswick, took a train down to Trenton, then Trenton to DC. I met some of the other students and the advisors who have been helping us along the way on the train. And then from there, it was basically straight to Capitol Hill. It feels like you're going on a roller coaster when you're doing something like that. Your stomach's all tight. It's impossible to eat anything before. I mean, that was basically the lead up, and then we were in the preparation room, and all of our details were hammered out. We just weren't sure what was going to come of the question portion, or what was going to be the pushback that we would have seen from our campuses. I mean, that was the day.
Got it. So you walked into the room, you had your speeches prepared, but you weren't sure really what the questions were going to be, you said, right?
Exactly.
So tell us from your perspective, what were the most interesting parts? Tell us some of the moving parts that surprised you, that shocked you, that impacted you the most. Tell us about that.
Right. So one funny thing that I noticed that I'm not sure if any cameras picked up on it when Shabbos, the student from Harvard, was speaking about his president getting fired. I saw the congressman next to Elise Stefanik start patting her on the back. So I thought that was really something funny that it really stuck with me. But the most memorable parts, I mean, I connected with a lot of members of Congress afterwards who have been very active with the situation at Rutgers and have been very vocal with what's going on. um, they have been playing, especially since the testimony, a pivotal role in addressing and getting the administration to actually do what we need it to do, and to not let this stuff go on unchecked.
It's true. Between the Biden administration and the government, people have getting flack right and left, but really have been Congress people, congressmen, congresswomen, Democrats, Republicans, both sides of the aisle,
Yep.
just from New York, Elise Stefanik, Richie Torres, Republican, Democrat, respectively, but they've been there for us. They're standing up for us, and to all those who are standing up for what's decent, what's good, what's right for Israel, for the Jewish people, we have to give them a congratulations, a thank you, and just show them our true appreciation.
Yes, you mentioned Richie Torres. Richie Torres has been a phenomenal friend of the Jewish community and has been vocal about what's going on the campuses. He's been excellent.
So let's jump right off that. The campuses, right? You went to Congress, you spoke to them. So obviously it wasn't a quiet event. What happened after the event on campus? Do you notice any tangible change on the student level, on the administrative level?
Right. So it's good that you divided it into the student level and the administrative level. On the student level, I got a ton of support from the Jewish community. People, I can't even count how many people texted me. Thank you for being a voice for us. Thank you. Thank you for talking about what happened to me. Thank you for talking about what happened to us. On the student level, people are very happy that things at Rutgers are finally becoming, known to the world. Unlike some other campuses, at Rutgers, we've kept things incredibly quiet. We haven't traditionally gone to the media with our issues, both because we didn't think it'd be productive, but also we're not, we're not Harvard, we're not Yale, we're not Princeton. And on the administrative level, they knew it happened. They were watching. They were nervous, and they remain, uncomfortable by the fact that things are now becoming public. It's an ongoing mission to actually have things accomplished. But having that testimony and being able to, bring things to light that people otherwise wouldn't have known about, it had a very tangible, positive effect on the administration.
You mentioned in the beginning of that, you mentioned that a lot of people texted you, right? Reaching out, supporting you, for speaking up for them, for bringing light to things that not everybody knew about, for shedding light on things that were really hidden beforehand. What would you say was the most, for people who haven't seen your speech, who haven't been able to watch the full video, what would you say was the strongest part or the most important part of what you yourself stood up and spoke about that day?
I think the most important part, from my perspective, were the things that I personally experienced. I spoke about in my speech on November 17th. There's an incident where the Rutgers chapter for Students in Justice in Palestine, SJP, they stormed and, took over the College Avenue Student Center. I was there. I was really there to have, to try to have conversation with these people who, so vocally hate, the country I'm proud of. And I was called a murderer. People called me a European colonizer. I mean, after that, I was shocked. Some of these people used to be my friends, to be honest, and just seeing the hate and the visceral that's emerged in the time since October 7th, it's shocking. And I was happy to share that very specific experience because it also included, a part where it was allowed to happen. Why were they allowed to go into the student center and take it over? People left. I have friends who had to leave and who were afraid and felt uncomfortable. Why was that allowed to happen? I mean that gets back to the problem with, members of the administration not enforcing the rules.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point there. A lot of these small things that don't make it out to these big stream media or the news or stuff, but they're very impactful on an individual level. I mean, Cooper Union, I'm at NYU, down the block. Their library was accosted by these protesters. At NYU, just like us, our Boakes library was taken over by protesters multiple times, sometimes with flags, sometimes calling themselves teachers and faculty. It's very, very upsetting, and it's very cool that you were able to stand up and tell Congress about the small things that it's against the rules, it shouldn't be happening, and it needs to be spoken about at some level because it's not getting the coverage that it deserves.
Right.
Now, you mentioned before that you had a knot in your stomach the entire time leading up to that. So now I want to ask you, like, how nervous were you? How'd you deal with those emotions? What was going on in your brain? Of course you were nervous, but what was it really like walking to that chamber?
So before walking in, I was incredibly nervous. Like I said, I mean, just my stomach was in complete knots. But like walking in and seeing the cameras and seeing that I wasn't alone, other students experienced this. Other universities have had these same exact issues. I was one of 9 students. I wasn't alone. It gave me a lot of hope and a lot of confidence that there's people who are willing to speak out, and we're not alone.
Strength through unity. I love that. We're nearing not the end, but towards the end of our talk. But I want to open it up for questions in the comments. We have some comments some questions from before that we'll start asking now as the questions through the comments come in. So we'll start with one of the first ones. Someone asks, Joe, what do you recommend prospective students do before going to college, in high school, in the summer beforehand? How do they prepare for what college is really going to be like?
That's an excellent question. I think it goes back to understanding who you are as a person. Be proud of your heritage. Be proud to be a Sephardi, a Syrian Jew, and understand, we have a very long tradition of being excellent, and don't be afraid to, be yourself on your college campus. I think education and understanding, why is Israel important to me? Why is Judaism important to me? I think that's a very important thing for students to understand before they enter college, especially if they're going to be dorming, or if they're going to, not go study in yeshiva in Israel beforehand.
You mentioned education and really just teaching yourself facts and getting a grasp of the situation. I mean, we know you're a big SCA member. You've been to a lot of the programs. You're very active. What are some of your more tools or productive outlets that you've used to really get educated on these topics?
So, I mean, that's a good question. I would say my father has definitely been a major impact in my understanding. We don't. I mean, you know my dad, Alan. We don't always agree on politics, but on Israel, we're able to really sit down and like understand each other and understand different perspectives. And he's been a major influence and an impact in an excellent way on my being able to speak out on college campuses. Other than that, reading, understanding the news, and just being very active in that is what I would recommend. And otherwise, I recommend every Jewish student study for at least a year in Israel. I think that's also a major impact on many students' abilities to be vocal on their and proud on their campuses.
I could definitely second that. I also 100% recommend going to Israel for the year. Amazing opportunity, amazing educational experience, etc. We have another question here saying, given everything that's been difficult on Rutgers, but how much easier it could have been to just stay home and go to a smaller college, not necessarily dorm. Do you recommend studying away? Do you recommend going to Rutgers and dorming there?
So I would still recommend Rutgers for Jewish students. It's not as bad as other campuses. I think there are other campuses that are in much worse situations. To name a few, UC Berkeley, Harvard, Columbia. Those campuses are worse, and they get more news coverage because they are in such a worse situation. I went to Rutgers because it is a really good school. I mean, I don't know if I spoke with you about this, but it was between Rutgers and NYU, and one of the faults of NYU would be, staying at home and not having that, real college dorming experience.
I'm in a dorm.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a dorm in the city. But, being involved in the campus in a way where you could, share who you are as a Syrian Jew, I think that's a very important thing for members of our community to have. But of course, they need to have that education, as we spoke about beforehand.
Well, actually, jumping off that, we have a question in the comments from Yair. He wants to know, what kind of Jewish involvement do you recommend to do on campus?
That's a great question, Yair. I recommend being involved in the Hillel, the Chabad. Some campuses have had issues where their Jewish institutions don't support them. I have to tell you that is 100% not the situation at Rutgers. Our Hillel and Chabad have been extremely supportive of both me as an individual and all of the Jewish community. It's been incredible to see. Just today we had a march where every campus, a march for Israel, where every campus Jewish organization came out and showed their support. It was really beautiful to see such numbers. And just get involved in whatever you have, because every campus I know is slightly different. And so, yeah.
Another community question we have, you mentioned that you were nervous from before walking into it, right? But were you nervous about the repercussions after? Meaning, Joe, you and I have a mutual friend in a college a little bit north of here who he was doxxed. He was scared. He had to walk around in a disguise for a week. Were you nervous about that? Did you feel secure? Did you feel safe? Was security a big concern for you?
Right, that's a great question. So I myself was not immediately concerned. That wasn't my biggest concern, because going out there, I was sacrificing a part of myself. I was missing a day of school, and I was becoming a very public figure at that time. So I was willing to make that sacrifice. People approached me about, are you comfortable being on campus? Do you feel safe? Are you gonna keep your neck turned at all times? But I in the weeks since, I haven't felt any sense of missing any security. It's been okay. It's been good. At least for me personally. As a Jew, there are of course the issues that we're having at Rutgers.
But glad to hear that you're feeling safe, that you're not feeling scared in any way, you're feeling secure. That's reassuring personally, and as a community, I'm sure everyone's happy that you and the rest of the Jewish community is feeling okay. I think we're nearing the end of our time. Do you want to share any last message for everybody? Any last words from campus? Anything like that?
Sure. I mean, I could share a personal thing that's happening this week at Rutgers. Right now, we're dealing with a BDS referendum. For those who don't know what that is, basically the referendum is to divest the university's endowment fund from companies based in Israel and that do business with the state of Israel. Um, it's an inherently anti-Semitic movement to isolate and single out the only Jewish state and to make Jewish students feel afraid. The referendum it's scary, but we have our lawmakers who make sure that things are okay. So this referendum won't have any major impacts on the university. BDS is functionally illegal in the state of New Jersey. It has been since Chris Christie was governor. And just know you're not alone as a student. Always be proud, be comfortable, be aware of who you are and the heritage that you're bringing to your campus. I think that's a very important message for everyone to take away with them.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe, so much. Thank you for taking the time to to speak with us. Thank you to all our viewers who came and took time to hear our conversation. And Joe, keep doing the work you do. Keep keeping us safe. Keep advocating for us.
Thank you, Al.
And does that stuff. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. Bye, everyone.